1,200 miles out into the South Atlantic Ocean lies the remote, isolated island of St Helena. It took us 10 days to sail here, and a further 4 days waiting on a mooring before we were given permission to land. In this episode, we finally set foot ashore to explore this remote British outpost and find that it is very different to how we expected it to be. We are Matanami. We have spent the last 6 years sailing our 37-foot sailboat Florence around the world. In that time we have crossed 3 oceans. Over 36,000 miles have passed under our keel, and we are now closing in on our goal, to complete our circumnavigation.
Before us lies the Atlantic Ocean, which we will now cross twice, in order to reach the shores of England once more.
After waiting 4 days on board Florence, we were finally able to hop on the ferry for the short trip ashore. The harbour here on St Helena does not provide much protection from the South Atlantic swells, which can make landing too hazardous for small dinghies. Thankfully, the ferry service is only £2 per person for a round trip, so we plan to use this as our main means of getting ashore.
Finally ashore!
Welcome to land in a new country.
Before we can explore, we need to check in with the authorities. First off is the harbour master.
That's what you need from us, and if you like to go up those steps and carry on going into customs, that's what you need for customs. And once you're done with customs, you go downstairs to immigration, and I don't need to see you guys anymore until you're ready to leave.
Hello. Checking in.
Hi.
So we're now checked into the island, but it didn't go as smoothly as we thought it would. This is the first time that we've been in a British port since we left England 6 years ago. So we thought we'd just show our British passports and be allowed in to stay as long as we like, but it didn't go that smoothly.
No, we were actually interrogated by the immigration officer who stamped our passports and only gave us a month to stay here. I mean, it's not like we need to stay longer, but I kind of wrongly assumed that we would be allowed to if needed. But she very sternly told us that it would be reviewed after 1 month, and we could apply to stay longer if that was necessary.
We assumed that coming here to St Helena, it'll be the first time in our round the world trip that we are not foreigners, and that would make things much easier. Our bank card would just work and everything would be just like home and easy, but it's not the case. Even though we are British citizens and this is a British territory, we are still effectively foreigners here.
Yeah, there's actually no ATM on the island, and you can't use either a British or an international credit card in any of the shops, so it's cash for everything. But in order to get cash, you need to go to the bank and pay a 5% commission fee to withdraw British pounds. So you can spend pounds here, but in change you get St Helena pounds, which you can spend in St Helena, but you cannot spend in the UK.
There's only about 4,000 people living here, but because they are an overseas territory, they're not like a county of Britain, they have to have all of the services that go with government, like a prison service, courts, judges, on their own. So although they have all the same rules, or most of the same rules as the UK, it's the UK but not the UK, it is its own country.
Just to give you a bit of scale, the island itself is about 1/3 of the size of the Isle of Wight, which is very close to where we left from in the UK 6 years ago. Until a couple of years ago, the only way to get here was by boat. They now have an airport with flights coming from South Africa, but the flights are only currently running once every 3 weeks. They're hoping to up that when tourism improves, but it's still a very difficult place to get to. It's even more friendly though than we remember a small UK village to be. Every single person, even in the main town, says hello to you, people wave at you, and we already feel like we know quite a number of people on the island.
Yeah, we've been really welcomed in. They definitely welcomed the yachts in.
This is Jamestown, the main town in St Helena, and you can see Florence on the mooring just behind me. You can probably see just how much she's waving around as well, so I think the best thing for us to do whilst we're here is to spend as much time ashore as possible, which is also a really good thing because the island is supposed to be beautiful. So today we're just going to stretch our legs and try and get our bearings and find out a bit more about what there is to do here. How gorgeous is this? It's got the ocean and then this just sheer cliff that we're able to walk along the side of. It's absolutely spectacular. This is actually the cliff that we sailed around, so we just came around that headland that you can just see in the distance and then along to Jamestown. It's a really important day today in St Helena, so we've come around from Jamestown and walked around the cliff to Rupert's Bay where all the action is happening. This is where the once monthly supply ship is arriving and being offloaded. This is the only supply ship that comes on a regular basis to the island, and it's how they get everything they need.
We had a look around the grocery stores this morning and there are a lot of empty shelves. Because this only comes once a month, just before the ship arrives they generally run out of everything, and then suddenly as soon as the ship arrives there's a glut, all the shelves are full again, so we've arrived at a good time.
Just to give you an indication of how remote things are on St Helena, I'm going to send a postcard home, but we have just missed the last post. So the post goes out on the plane, but it'll be 3 weeks before this card leaves the island, because that's when the next plane is. Most places we go, we get a local SIM card and we use that for both phone calls and data. But it's so expensive here that we're resorting to the island's phone boxes, which work.
So that's our hire car organised.
Although St Helena is a tiny island, measuring just 6 by 10 miles, it's incredibly hilly, so the best way to get around is to hire a car.
So this is one of the main roads in and out of the main town of Jamestown. And actually it is the only main road in and out of town at the moment because the other ones are closed for repairs, and it's single lane for most of the way. So down traffic gives way to up traffic, and on the way down you end up hopping from passing place to let everybody through. But it's very polite to wave at everybody as you go past, and everybody waves back. Very different. Maximum speed limit is 30 miles an hour, and in town it's 20 miles an hour, which you think, going from the UK, wow, that's a bit slow, but it's actually quite difficult to exceed it even if you wanted to, because the roads are so twisty, and you can't see what's coming around the bend the other way. Whoa. Small gap. Sometimes some of the locals are a lot more confident about how much space there is on the road than I am. And some of the turns, the hairpins, we can just make it round because we've got a small turning circle in this, but the bigger 4x4s and trucks have to do a 3-point turn on the hairpins. One of the things that St Helena is famous for is the postbox walks. There are 21 hikes around the island, and each one's got a postbox with a specific stamp at the end of it, and you can get a book and collect all the stamps if you've got enough time and you're fit enough. And this is one of the more popular ones. This is Lot's Wife's Ponds. And since the weather's not too bad today, we're going to see if we can take a crack at it.
Ah yes, the weather. Because of the way things have worked out, we are here in St Helena's winter season, and the weather has possibly been the most British thing about this island so far. We've been trying to dodge the rain to complete as many of these postbox hikes as possible in our time here.
This one's a pretty steep hike, not good for after you've been at sea for 10 days not doing any exercise. Then we've got to go 200 metres up and then 200 metres down the other side. But around here there's loads and loads of seabirds nesting. All the white on the cliffs is like boobies nesting. We normally get them flying around us and trying to steal the fishing lure. So these guys aren't too scared of people. And quite often when we have them flying around the boat, they will land on the boat. They use our solar panels on the top of the bimini as a landing runway. But then as you can see around the nest, they're quite messy. So if we leave them to stay on the solar panels, then we have to clean them off in the morning. You see how on this barren ground, the birds must have collected all the little stones, because I don't know if that's because it's better for them, more comfortable for them to sit on, or because the water drains away. Doesn't look that comfortable to me.
So we've reached the peak of the hike and have this amazing view of Lot's Wife. The peaks in the background are called the Ass's Ears, and then the Gorilla Head just below it as well.
The landscape on St Helena is incredibly varied. This part of the island has suffered hugely from erosion, and the topsoil has been stripped away to reveal this barren expanse. This hike ends on the rugged southern coast of St Helena, where the South Atlantic Ocean surges and boils against the dramatic, craggy and inhospitable shoreline. The stark peaks stripped of their vegetation seem like a scene from another planet, and are vastly different to the centre of the island.
So we made it to the end of the Lot's Wife Ponds hike, and these are the Lot's Wife Ponds. It's supposed to be a beautiful place to go for a swim on a hot and sticky day after you've hiked here, but it's midwinter and it's not a sunny day, so neither of us are really feeling a swim.
We did, however, feel like getting our stamp. Since it was miraculously still not raining, we thought we would try our luck with another hike.
So the island's pretty small, and you can see the highest point on the island, which is Diana's Peak up there, and there's another one of the postbox walks that takes you up there. It's supposed to be really beautiful up there, and you're supposed to get amazing views over the entire island. So from here you're supposed to be able to see the entire island, but it's a very British day today. It's been raining most days that we've been here, unfortunately, because we are here in winter, and yeah, it's more of a British view. This looks a lot like the view from Snowdon or Ben Nevis. Could be anywhere really. Ah, now it's a lot better. So we've got lucky, we just come along from Diana's Peak to Cuckold's Peak, which is a little bit further along St Ridge, and the cloud lifted for a minute. It's actually starting to come back down again now, and we got a view of the entire island. It's amazing how this central bit is lush and green, yet over here we've just got this barren section which has got no greenery whatsoever. It's a really dramatic landscape. Although it's really nice ashore here on St Helena, there is no real sheltered bay to anchor or moor in, so the mooring field here
is really exposed to the swell, to the extent that instead of sleeping in the forepeak like we normally do at anchor, we've been sleeping out here where we're in the centre of the boat, so the motion's a little bit better. But even so, we're actually having to tie ourselves in with our lee cloths so that we don't fall out halfway through the night. If only we had a fairy godmother who could make our bed stable and stop rocking around. Oh, this is much better.
It turns out we do have a fairy godmother, and his name is Richard. This is his place, Banana Tree Lodge. It's a holiday home that he rents out on the island, and he contacted us way back when we were in South Africa months ago and invited us to stay here, which has been absolutely amazing, especially given how rolly the anchorage is.
After our 3-night stay at Banana Tree Lodge, it was still raining, so we headed to another grand house in search of the island's most famous living resident.
As this is a British overseas territory, it has a governor appointed by the British government. Unfortunately, we didn't catch the governor in, but to be honest, we were more interested in the island's most famous living resident.
Here at Plantation House, you've also got Jonathan, haven't you, who is how old this year?
Now, Jonathan's 190 years old. He is so famous, one of the main tourist attraction.
And he's originally from Seychelles?
He's from the Seychelles, yeah. Came here in 1882.
Wow. Despite his advanced age and the inclement weather, Jonathan was out walking around the grounds, so we went to find him.
This is Jonathan. He's thought to be the oldest animal in the world. He's a giant Seychelles tortoise. He's not looking too bad for the oldest animal in the world, is he? We were told that because it's winter, he'd probably be quite docile and pretty much hibernating, but he's got a lot more energy and he looks a lot healthier than I was expecting for a 190-year-old. Just like the giant tortoises that we saw in Seychelles. Seems they all love a good neck scratch. Probably the most pampered Seychelles tortoise in the world, I think.
He is hand-fed by the vet every Sunday, but he eats the grass off the lawn, and he has 2 males and 1 female as company.
The British weather finally gave us a break, so we set out to fit in as many of the postbox walks as we possibly could.
Could have been a better view. It was, about 2 seconds ago, a better view. It'll clear in a minute.
Unfortunately, that one is our last postbox walk before we sail on to Brazil, but I think they've made us fitter. We've just done 5 in the last 2 days, 2 today. So this one up to Flagstaff and then we walked all the way down to Sugarloaf over there.
And back up to
Again.
here.
We have to just like cram the exercise in before we go to sea again.
And then we'll sit down and do nothing for 2 weeks
Yeah.
at sea.
But before we follow the trade winds onwards, we have time to discover one more of St Helena's surprises.
We were told by the local divers that this is poor visibility due to the runoff from the winter rains on the island, and it's actually much better in summer.
The star of the dive was this huge devil ray. Its wingspan is about 6 to 7 feet, and we gazed in wonder as it circled around us.
We love seeing the creatures of the world in their natural environments, but we often feel like we are intruding and the wildlife is at best just tolerating our presence. But the opposite was true of this graceful giant. It followed us as we swam, swooping and banking elegantly between us, and looking at us eye to inquisitive eye.
We abandoned the dive plan and just enjoyed hanging out. We are fortunate to have had many memorable experiences beneath the waves on this 6-year journey around the world, and this is yet another.
We've had a brilliant time here on St Helena, and there's still tons of stuff left to do that we haven't been able to do, but the season's moving on and there's a weather window approaching for us to be able to sail on the 1,700 miles to Fernando de Noronha in Brazil. So yeah, we're looking like we're going to be setting off very soon.
Next time we set off to rock and roll 1,700 miles across the South Atlantic Ocean to an island that is even smaller than St Helena, the tiny Brazilian island of Fernando de Noronha, 200 miles off the coast of South America.
Don't forget to subscribe to catch the next episode. We release a video every 2 weeks.
If you'd like to find out more about behind the scenes on Florence, track our progress across the oceans in real time, find out where we are right now, or ask us pretty much anything, then please head over to our Patreon site and join the crew.
We'd like to thank everyone who supports us to make these videos possible, and a special thank you to our staff patrons.